Hi, and welcome to Morning Moments with Chap and D. I'm the senior pastor here at St. Andrews, and we together are so grateful to be with you this morning. There's one of my very favorite passages in the Old Testament that's not quite that clear, but it's a beautiful passage where Elijah, when he's going through some tough times, the Lord wanted to speak to him. Elijah in 1 Kings 19 says this, the Lord said, "Go out and stand on the mountain in the presence of the Lord, for the Lord's about to pass by. Don't miss him, Elijah." Then a great and powerful wind tore the mountains apart and shattered the rocks before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind, there was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. After the earthquake came a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire came a gentle whisper. When Elijah heard it, he pulled his cloak over his face and went out and stood at the mouth of the cave. Then a voice said to him, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" The Lord met him in that beautiful little phrase, a gentle whisper, verse 12 of 1 Kings 19, a gentle whisper. A wind, earthquake, fire, these miraculous, powerful, mysterious events that God brought to Elijah, but God wanted to get his attention in a different way, in a deeper way. That word that we translate, that phrase in Hebrew, is actually difficult to translate. I heard it once described as a thin silence, that God wanted to meet him, not in the midst of the big wild commotion, but even among all of that, that he came in this thin silence, in this gentle whisper. And perhaps this season for us, we can meet God in that gentle whisper of his presence.
You know, during this time of COVID and sheltering in place, we have a lot of opportunity and time to practice silence. I've heard people describe structure and support as important coping mechanisms during this time. But I haven't heard much about the importance of silence. And in the last year of my spiritual direction training, I've really come to recognize through practice the importance of silence. It's in silence that we, as Chap read out of Kings this morning, that we are able to hear the still small voice of God. That's how he comes to us. Not in the huge windstorm, not in the earthquake, and not in the fire. But it requires us getting quiet and still so that we can hear that gentle whisper. And what a better time than now, without the distractions going on in our outer lives, to really take the opportunity to listen, to get still and to get quiet and to get silent before God. And to recognize what are the things that are bubbling up inside of us as a result of the absence of distraction. What are the things that are bubbling up in our primary relationships? And what's bubbling up in our faith? How is God wanting to get our attention? What might he be saying to us during this time about how he wants to grow us and really accomplish his purposes through this time of struggle and challenge? We were talking today about some of those lessons, and on a simple level, some of the things that have been coming to my mind are, just in the kitchen, like making do with what you have instead of jumping in the car and running to grab something. Really appreciating the things that we do have. Recognizing the privileges that we have. We have a home to shelter in. We have food and resources. And because of that, what is required of us? What is God asking of us based on our resources and the things he gives us? On a deeper level, some of the things that I think are coming to mind is as I still myself and really pay attention to the pain in the world, I can get anxious and, like I mentioned to you a few weeks ago, kind of overwhelmed with that anxiety. And I'm not historically an anxious person, but it's there. It's underlying, I think, for a lot of us right now. And I can be sad and really connect with deep pain in the world. And during those moments, just recognizing the importance of being intentional about prayer and contemplative practices, breath prayer, meditation, walks, going on walks and looking for one or two things that God wants to show us as we're moving throughout our walks with Luna, appreciating the beauty. And also just noticing what are some things in our relationship that are surfacing, and what kind of person, am I in this quietness without distractions. Chap burned the chicken the other day. And there was a part of me that wanted to say, you burned the chicken. But I heard God say, Dee, don't open your mouth. Don't be critical.
It's very rare when I burn the chicken.
It's a great example for us to really be quiet inside of ourselves and tuned in and listening. How is it that God wants to get our attention right now? Can we be quiet enough and listen during this time so that we can come out on the other side looking more like Jesus, and for him to really accomplish his purposes in us during this time?
As Brian said this weekend, that God pursues us in his sermon, that we are so grateful for the opportunity to remember that he is constantly in the pursuit of us, and this way that we can enter into that presence that he gives us is through that silence. It's not a natural thing for me, but it doesn't take a lot of discipline either. It simply takes the understanding that God is present and speaks in those places when I will allow myself to stop and receive the gift of himself. And that's what we're talking about, is may this season be a time and a season where we really take the focus off of the busyness and the normal way we live our lives and slow ourselves down, step back a minute and receive God as he speaks to us in that gentle whisper, in that thin silence. So that's our thought for today. We hope it's been helpful.